Mission 3, Travelling the Tube. Welcome to Queen's Park Station. This is a southbound service. This train travels to and terminates at Elephant and Castle. So hey there, Drawyah here, and welcome to Dovetail Games Train Smells 2. Today, back in the 1972 stock on the Bakerloo, and today taking service now from Queen's Park all the way to Elephant and Castle. So this kind of finishes off the end of the line in terms of the scenario in Train Sim World. So we've started off at London Road Depot, we've driven all the way to Harrow and Millstone, and now we are taking a return train back over to the Elephant Castle. So we'll set train up, open the doors, we'll set the reverser to intermittent, we'll set the traction control to off, and we'll clear the order warning before preparing the train for departure. Lock the doors, reverser forward, and we are now clear to depart. Alright, press the warnings. Is it too early, have we? There we go. So, yes, let's say, taking the train now down the rest of the line, so leaving Queen's Park will pretty much now be in tunnel for the rest of the journey. We'll turn off the cab lights, and let's go through our stations for service today. Starting off with Köln Park, sorry, Maida Vale, Warwick Avenue, Paddington, Edgware Road, Marylebone, Baker Street, Regent's Park, Oxford Circus, Piccadilly Circus, Charing Cross, Embankment, Waterloo, Lambeth North, and then Elephant and Castle when the train terminates. As we approach down the tunnel here, we'll put a little bit of braking to stop train from accelerating too much. Though very shortly the speed limit will increase and we will be able to stretch its legs a little bit. There we go, up to 35. So it should be a rather simple air driving today. I mean, we'll be in the tunnels for the majority of the journey. It has been a nice and dry start. There was no real issue for traction there, and so we'll leave it on running mode 2. And slowly, we'll come to our first stop. Perfect. Doors open. Let passengers board and disembark. We'll do a quick platform check. All looks good. Let's close the doors, close the window, and let's get ready to depart. I'll tell you what, wait until 15:33. It's like we may have actually departed slightly early at Queen's Park, and therefore have now been held here just for a couple of moments. So what actually we'll do, we'll leave the door open for any late passengers to arrive. And really just a case of holding the train now for a few seconds before we do make our departure. Or, you know, you could just stand there, your choice. Right, so in a second, we'll now be cleared to depart, so we'll close the doors. And we'll start a slow departure out of Cumberland Park. Perfect. Next station, Maida Vale. At the speed now, we're coming up towards the 35 mph line speed at the moment. In a couple of moments, we'll start holding the brakes as we now approach the platform. wonderful facts for you. The Bakerloo Line is the only deep level tube that terminates at, terminates within Zone 1. I mean, you've got the Waterloo and City Line as well, which is entirely in Zone 1 London Underground, but Waterloo and City doesn't really count as a tube service. But, yes, the Bakerloo Line is the only proper London Underground service that's deep level and terminates at Zone 1. However, in the next couple of years, they do anticipate extending the routes. They extend it by a couple of miles, and so eventually it will head out to Zone 2, potentially even Zone 3. So the Bakerloo Line extension at this stage is currently in the decision making of where they'll extend it to. So I believe it's Camberwell it should be extending to in the future. But that is still a few years away, and so I think Transport for London will focus on the Northern Line extension first. Then potentially monitor the situation regarding the new tube for London before ultimately deciding do they extend the Bakerloo Line. So up to 30, we'll cut back on the traction control. A little bit of braking as we head downhill. Very shortly, we'll now be pulling into Warwick Avenue. Judging how far the stations are underground isn't too much of a process, especially if you have the UI HUD available on top left as well. With the length of the train, you can also already assume that as they're about 130 odd yards in length, the platforms will also be 130 odd yards in length, and so in terms of actually judging the train for when to slow down, it's not too difficult to do. Likewise, you don't particularly even need the distance on top left, because these trains are travelling so slow anyway and the brakes are relatively effective for what they are. Essentially it's full throttle until you enter the platform, then you go down to brake setting 1, and then slowly increase it as you reach the end of the platform. But for the most part, these trains are relatively easy to judge and don't cause too much of a problem for you. Doors closed. And let's get going. Next station, Paddington. Change for the Circle, District and Hampton City lines, and for National Rail services. Actually, I believe it now makes also reference to a TfL rail separately, as that will become part of Elizabeth Line, once that becomes a thing. If it ever becomes a thing. They've pushed it back by another 2 years, and so who knows what's going to happen with that at the moment. You have two separate TfL rail services. You have one from Paddington to Reading. You've got service down to Heathrow Airport, and also you've got the service from London Liverpool Street to Shenfield. And so what we're waiting for right now is the tunnel that connects Paddington to Shenfield that goes underneath all of London. And, well, as it stands, that's not opening anytime soon, so one day we will see a cross-London railway. But as things stand, it's a couple of years away. It should have opened last December, just as a reference. Not December gone, but last December. Right. Oops, a little bit late on the braking admittedly, but we are still on the platform. Yeah, we'll be alright. A little bit of a late stop, but we are still on the platform. Passengers shouldn't get affected by that. Alright, close the doors. Wait about 3 seconds, so no real worth keeping doors open. And let's now head on our next station, Edgware Road. Now at this point we are now running parallel to the Hammersmith and City and Circle lines, as well as District Line, which terminates at Edgware Road. But we are also running underneath the tracks, and so we do run towards the same station. But at this point we'll then break away from the Hampstead City, Bakerloo and District lines will stop at Marylebone, which then the subsurface trains don't do, before again reaching them at Baker Street and then breaking south. So after that'll be Oxford Circus on the Central and Piccadilly lines, and then I believe it's Green Park on the Piccadilly. Then it's Charing Cross on the Northern Embankment, which is the southern portion of the District and Circle lines. Waterloo transfers to the Jubilee and Northern. Lambeth North is on its own. And then I believe it's Northern again for Elephant and Castle. So the Bakerloo has quite a fair few interchange stops, especially as it travels through central London. But other than the London Overground, north of Queen's Park, or even north of Paddington, doesn't really have any interchanges and routes. Yeah, because Warwick Avenue, Maida Vale and Kilburn Park, they have no interchange. And Queen's Park to Harrow and Waterstone, you do go alongside the London Overground, the Watford DCU line. Well, you've also got the semi-transfer at Kensington, as that would be Norfolk Park on the Metropolitan line. But again, that doesn't really count. It's not, the stations aren't connected. It's a surface interchange, so you have to walk between two stations and do it within like 5 minutes in order for that to count. The train to our right. Next station, Marylebone. Change for National Rail Services. This is the Chiltern Main Line, so you can get to Birmingham via either Aylesbury or West Ruislip. Slowly head to the end of the platform. It's going to stop. I do like the fact that the mirror on top of the station platform does actually work. You just about to see our headlight just appearing there. But yes, that mirror is a very cool addition. One I do very much just enjoy looking at as you drive into the stations. Yeah, unfortunately going the wrong way there. You can't exit the platform through there. Right, close the doors, and let's get going. Next station, Baker Street. A little bit fast there, so I put a little bit of braking on. So Baker Street, as you can see, just ahead of us. Within the central London section, the stations aren't too far from one another. And so, at this section, it really is a case of start, stop, as you slowly make your way down the end of the line. We'll leave the brakes on Rio 1 hold. In fact, I'm a little bit slow there, so we'll leave this on release. And start slow down again towards the end of the platform. In terms of timing, we're pretty much spot on again. Perhaps a few seconds out on the latter part there, but doing alright for timing. You hear the train to the other platform there. It really is a plethora of sound here, a symphony of sound here on London Underground. It's just noises, noises, noises. If you ever get travelled the Underground, it's definitely worth a journey if you're travelling around London. There are some sections where it's not great to listen to, especially when you get to some of the high decibel sections. Things start getting even unbearable sometimes. So, for example, one mitigation that some sections of the Underground track has rubber bearings alongside the track, Because what that does is it minimises sound on the surface of London. Having a few compares where you can hear the trains underground, and so they're like a rubber traction to the track, and it mitigates sound on the surface by removing the vibrations, but the vibrations have to go somewhere, and in those sections they go inside the train. So those can be some very loud sections, because no longer sound goes on the ground, but into the train directly. So I'll slow down. And welcome to Regent's Park. One thing I do like about the Bakerloo Line, in fact also, I'll go for another bit of a history fact as well. So, on the Bakerloo Line, along with some of the other central London lines, each station has its own pattern, each station has its own colour. So Regent's Park, as you can see, it's the orange colour with these diamonds on the platform. Basically, this was done at a time back when people couldn't read, so literacy rate in London was relatively low, but people travelled the tube to get to work, and so you have the name here in the original signage, but each station has different colour, each station has different pattern, and so that, also the illiterates, didn't understand where they were, where they're going to, and then decide when to get off the train without having to actually read the signs. So for a lot of people, in the early days of London Underground, they weren't stations, but they were colours. So that's one of the original design features that, I guess, remade London Underground as it is today. I mean, nowadays you've got 4 PA systems, you've got 4 guidance, you've got a lot more support, and the literacy rate in London has sky-risen to almost 100%. But, yeah, back in the early days, it was all about knowing what colour was your home station, what colour was your workstation, and travelling between the two. Next station, Oxford Circus. Push down slightly, the speed limit decreases. Got a little bit of traction in, but since we are going uphill at this stage, it's not going to do too much between the accelerator and the train. So Station 8 Oxford Circus would have had the patterns as well, but over the years that would have been removed and just left with the standard white platform as you see today. I think the Bakerloo though has got the most of the original designs. It's either Bakerloo or Northern Line. But yeah, over the years they have slowly removed the patterns, but I believe now that the stations that do have them will keep them as like a heritage thing, but the new stations won't so much have them. There's a lot of history in London Underground, and there is a lot to learn. I mean, if you ever want to, even just read the Wikipedia page on the history of London Underground. It's now 158 years of running. 158 years since it first opened, from Farrington to Baker Street. So, yeah, there's a whole lot of history there to learn if you are interested in learning about the subject. I mean, that's how I know all my knowledge, both when it comes to aviation, when it comes to trains, when it comes to a lot of things. It's Wikipedia. I don't know about you guys, but one thing that I like to do when I'm bored is just go to a random article on Wikipedia, read it, and then kind of just click on the URL, see what it redirects to, and kind of follow along different things. So, like, I'll start off looking at a certain building I'm interested in, like doing a research for something, I look at a building or something, and then it talks about a certain person, I'll then click on the person's profile, open it in a new tab, talks about location, I'll open that, stick it in a new tab, so forth, so forth, so forth, and then I'll pretty much spend the entire day just reading about random stuff that I may not have no interest in, but I don't know, there's a lot of interesting stories out there when it comes to history. And one thing I'm definitely quite excited for is waiting for the Rivet Games Bakerloo Line, sorry, Rivet Games Isle of Wight line to come out. As, well, with it, you get the Class 483, I believe it is, which is essentially the 1938 stock on Line Underground. So, the original stock that used to run the line, paint it red, stick it on the Bakerloo, and see what you can do. A little bit heavy there, but as long as train's in the platform, we should be alright. We're in the tunnel for sure, but yeah, as long as the doors are behind the end of platform marker there, we'll be alright. It will be a shame for when the 483s do disappear from the Island Line, which is only a couple of years away now. They're going to be replaced with the former District Line trains, the Viva trains, so I'll try and ride them at some point. I've never actually been to, well, I've been to Isle of Wight, but I've never been on the Island Line before. Yes, I have been on the class, or have been on the 83 stop train, 38 stop train. So last year there was a District Line rail tour where they rode the old stock around the District Line from Ealing Broadway to Moorgate and did a loop of the entire Circle Line. And well, I've got a video on this channel that showcases about it, but it definitely was a fun journey driving the old trains. There's something about these old traction motors that I just really like the sound to. I quite like the Met cams in the Jubilee line, but there's just something about these old grinding, low-tone motor sounds that I do really like. And for me, it makes either the 72 or 73 stock my favourite lines, my favourite trains on the Underground. If I accelerate, it's that low-tone sound that I just really like. I don't know why, but something about them I really like. Anyways, Charing Cross, next station. So at Charing Cross there used to be a interchange track between this platform and the platform that used to be on the Jubilee line. So, as I said in one of my previous videos, the Jubilee line, as it exists today, used to be part of the Bakerloo, at least a section between Charing Cross and Stanmore. However, as they ran and time went on, having the two branches of the Bakerloo line was difficult to manage, and therefore they decided to transfer the routes from Stanmore to Charing Cross to a brand new line, Jubilee line, and then create an extension from it all the way to Stratford. So Charing Cross station was lost, but instead you now have the trains running from Green Park all the way to Stratford. One thing I failed to mention in that previous video though was the fact that the branch from Stanmore to Charing Cross used to actually be, well, actually not to Charing Cross, but Stanmore to Finchley used to be part of the Metropolitan line. So back in the very early days of the Underground, the Metropolitan line used to operate that branch, and over the years that was then slowly lost to Bakerloo, and then that was then lost to Jubilee. And the Metropolitan line used to be massive. It used to cover the entire Circle line, it used to cover the East London line, and at one point the North London line between Moorgate and Finchley Road. So what was the Northern line, and also the same line that had the accidents back in the 1980s, that was going to be Metropolitan, but I think there was an issue around Parliament accepting that being the case, and therefore the Metropolitan line never then ran underground in that section. But the company that owns the Metropolitan Railway at the time were very much in the now for bidding for it and expanding it to their routes. Because the plan was then to extend the route south to... Man, it's going way back into my knowledge. So they're going to extend the route from Moorgate from the underground service to Moorgate to the surface platforms, create an extra branch line out, and then connect it to the rest of their network. But that never happened. Eventually, when the London Passenger Transport Board became a thing, that was transferred to the Northern Line, and then until 1989, I believe it is, or perhaps even a little bit earlier than that, 1979, they transferred that from Northern Line to Great Northern, which now operates mainline services in that section. And this came a couple of months just after the train crash, where the 1938 stock failed to slow down in Moorgate and crashed into the buffer at the end of the platform. No cause was known. I mean, nobody knows what happened. The driver looks unfazed according to eyewitnesses, but at the same time, nobody really knows for sure. The driver himself had, I believe it was £500 in his pocket to buy his daughter a new car after work that day. I think his name was Les Newton, and so, yeah, it's a big mystery around what happened on that day. But, yes, it's the worst accident on the history of London Underground. I mean, there have been a few minor incidents here and there, but certainly never a full-on train crash before. Unfortunately, London Underground has been relatively safe regarding that. And very rarely do incidents ever really appear during this service. Right, Lambeth North coming up next, our penultimate stop. Train down. And right at the end of the tunnel there, you can now see the platform coming into view. Right, just a moment, start the slow down. Stop. So, won't be stopped here for too long, just like any other stations. So as you see, Lambeth North has a brown pattern and also has these smaller diamonds that are throughout the entire platform. So compared to the previous station we were at, which was, if I get my memory back, Regent's Park, which had bigger diamonds and less frequent ones, Lambeth North used brown instead of orange and has a much more frequent diamond pattern. So it's those kind of designs that, again, goes back to the early days of London Underground, that allows the illiterate to understand where they were going. Next station and final station, Elephant and Castle. So we'll continue the final bit of route. It's going to be a bit of a slow section this, especially as we approach the points at the start of the platform. So just a couple of minutes to start hitting the brakes. And well, unlike those on the Victoria Line, these are not high-speed points of the platform. If you ever travel on the Victoria Line and head to the end of the line, so that will be either Walthamstow Central or Brixton, well, the train hits those points at a very high speed, at full running speed. And, well, you can feel the train hit those section of tracks, but for the most part, it's a relatively smooth transition as you put into the terminus platform. I mean, the Victoria Line is one of only 2 lines I've done end-to-end on Underground. So, I've done Victoria Line, I've done Waterloo and City. But despite the fact I've lived in London all my life, I've never actually gone end-to-end on any of the other routes on the Underground. I mean, I've never really had a reason to travel to South East London, or South East London. Underground barely touches the south, but yeah, I've never really had to travel. Never had any reason to travel to the east of London. nor do I really have any reason to travel to the south area of the Thames. And you get a few bits of Central London I've been to, but for the most part, things I don't know, I just don't go down there too often. Thank you for completing this run. Let's see how you performed. So, wait for the menu to pop up. We'll review our service, and then we'll bring this to an end. So, overall, not looking too bad. Now, stopping accuracy, relatively alright for the most part. A few stations where we are a little bit overshooting, but there you go, even our worst stop at 4.6 yards. If that was mainline, that'd be perfect. Enough went up points to hit the gold medal, so that's always a good sign. And that service took us 30 minutes and 26 seconds. We are now level 19 on the character, level 13 on the Bakerloo, and 21 on 72 stock, so it's rather good management of this train. And yeah, I mean, I'm enjoying the Bakerloo Line. It is a lot of fun to drive, a lot of fun to operate, and I like it. I like it a lot. So yeah, I think that brings us now to an end of our service today. Tomorrow, we'll be doing the next scenario, calling all stations. That's a run of the entire line from Elephant Castle to Harrow and Wardstone. And so that will definitely take a little bit of time to complete. But hey, that's tomorrow's problem. So yeah, thank you guys very much for watching. You guys take care of yourself, and I'll see you again soon. Take care, and goodbye.